I never imagined my life would change overnight, yet here I was, staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, feeling like a stranger in my own skin. My jaw tightened as my eyes roamed over the soft curves, the subtle lines, the delicate femininity that hadn't existed yesterday. It all started with a challenge. Or, rather, an ultimatum. Think of it as a new professional opportunity, my boss had said, leaning back in his chair with that smug smile that made my skin crawl. A week of transformation. If you succeed, there's a promotion in it for you. Fail, and, well, you don't want to know. I had laughed nervously at first, assuming it was a joke. But the look in his eyes told me otherwise. There was no joking. There was no escape. The first evening had been surreal. I found myself in a room filled with clothes I had never imagined wearing, dresses, skirts, blouses, high heels, all neatly organized as if this had been planned for months. My boss handed me a silk dress, soft and snug. Put it on. Tonight, you'll understand what I mean by being a woman. Hands trembling, I changed. My body responded instantly. The dress hugged me in ways that made me hyper-aware of every curve, every line. When I looked in the mirror, my own reflection shocked me. I barely recognized myself. My chest seemed fuller, my hips softer, my face different. And yet, there was a strange allure I couldn't deny. I wanted to run, scream, undo it all, but a part of me, hidden deep beneath panic, felt something stirring. Curiosity. A flicker of excitement. The next morning, reality hit harder. Walking into the office in the same dress and carefully applied makeup, I felt every pair of eyes on me. Whispers filled the air, some incredulous, some intrigued. "Is that him?" one colleague murmured. I forced a smile, my voice unsteady, testing the higher pitch that had been subtly trained overnight. "Good morning," I said, trying not to wobble on the heels that made my calves ache instantly. My boss clapped slowly, his smirk unchanged. "See? You're adjusting beautifully." I wanted to disappear. Every step felt alien. Chairs were too low, desks too sharp against my thighs, my body unfamiliar in its own movements. I stumbled slightly, catching myself on the edge of a table, cheeks burning. Yet, underneath the embarrassment, something undeniable pulsed, attention. People were looking at me in ways they hadn't before, some with curiosity, some with admiration. I couldn't ignore the surge of power that came with it. When no one was watching, I experimented. In the bathroom, behind the stall door, I adjusted my posture, played with my hair, practiced crossing my legs, moving softly. Each tiny gesture made me more aware of my new body, and strangely, more confident. I whispered to myself, this could be fun. I allowed myself a small, forbidden thrill as I traced the fabric of my skirt, feeling the curves beneath. It wasn't just clothing. It was armor, a statement, a transformation that demanded attention and respect. By the third day, I ventured into public outings my boss arranged as confidence exercises. Lunch meetings, casual strolls around the city, interactions with clients, all in heels, dresses, and the persona he insisted I adopt fully. People reacted immediately. Some stared, some smiled, some whispered. Every glance felt electric, every passing comment heightened the tension and the thrill. I was learning, slowly, to navigate this strange blend of fear and exhilaration. A waiter in a cafe complimented my blouse. "That color suits you." My stomach fluttered, but I smiled warmly, replying, "Thank you, that's sweet of you." Each small victory built confidence. I began to walk taller, speak softer but assuredly, sit with elegance, gesture with subtle grace. And every time I caught a reflection in the glass, I felt a mixture of disbelief and pride. But there was a price. Friends who saw me outside of work whispered questions, confusion etched on their faces. "Is this really you?" my closest friend asked one evening over coffee. I hesitated. "Yes. At least, it is, for now." She reached out, squeezing my hand. "I'm here. But don't let anyone make you feel less than yourself, okay?" Her words were comforting, yet my heart ached. The world outside the office felt unsafe, judgmental, critical. I began to understand that being forced into this role meant navigating not just physical changes, but emotional landscapes fraught with scrutiny. I found solace in private experimentation. At home, I tried different hairstyles, makeup, and outfits beyond the office dress code. I practiced voice modulation, walking in different types of shoes, learning to move with an effortless femininity. I discovered subtle joys, soft fabrics against skin, gentle sway of hips, the thrill of applying lipstick perfectly. And with each discovery, a hidden part of me blossomed, a part one hadn't known existed until now. I started documenting subtle victories, noting which outfit made me feel the most confident, which makeup accentuated my features, which gestures elicited positive responses. Slowly, I realized this forced transformation wasn't just a trap, it was an awakening. Weekend outings arranged by my boss became the ultimate tests. Dinner at an upscale restaurant, attending social mixes, and even casual shopping trips, all under the guise of professional exercises. Every interaction was a lesson. A stranger complimented my earrings. I smiled, heart racing. A friend of a client commented on my soft hands. I blushed, a warm satisfaction blooming inside. I began to understand that femininity was not just about appearance, it was an attitude, a presence, a subtle command of attention. And slowly, I began to feel empowered. But empowerment didn't erase fear. On the fifth day, a colleague recognized me outside the arranged office outings. The reaction was instant. Whispered comments, shocked expressions. My heart hammered in my chest. I retreated to the bathroom, leaning against the cold tile. Was I being brave or reckless? Could I handle this exposure, this judgment, this constant scrutiny? Armin, a friend from outside work who had started noticing my change, called that evening. You're amazing, you know that, he said softly. You're alive in a way I've never seen before. His words calmed me, reminded me that courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was moving forward despite it. The climax came unexpectedly. My boss announced a final assessment, a formal event with senior executives, where I would attend as the fully transformed version of myself. My hands shook as I adjusted my dress, applied a bold lipstick, and stared at my reflection. This wasn't just about the promotion, it was about proving I could inhabit this persona fully, without hesitation. The event was a whirlwind. Conversations, laughter, glances, attention, all directed at me. I moved through it, initially stiff, but gradually with grace. Compliments poured in, eyes lingered, and I realized that I was no longer just playing a role. I was her. After the event, my boss approached me, smirk softer, almost approving. You've exceeded expectations, he said. It seems you've embraced the challenge fully. I swallowed, a mix of relief and disbelief coursing through me. Thank you, I replied, voice steady, confidence radiating from every gesture. In that moment, I realized something profound. The transformation, forced though it had been, had revealed a strength I hadn't known existed. Femininity, presence, confidence, it wasn't just imposed. It was earned, discovered, and claimed. The days after the event were surreal. Colleagues who had been skeptical now approached with admiration. Friends began to see a new version of me, confident, radiant, unapologetically feminine. And even Armin, well, he simply smiled, taking my hand and whispering, I'm proud of you. I allowed myself to enjoy the sensation of being fully seen, fully acknowledged, and fully alive. The dress, the makeup, the high heels, they were no longer symbols of coercion. They were symbols of empowerment, self-discovery, and agency. Reflecting on the journey, I understood that transformation isn't always voluntary. Sometimes life, or someone else's plan, forces us into situations that seem uncomfortable, frightening, even humiliating. But within that discomfort lies potential, opportunity, and growth. I whispered to my reflection one evening, the city lights glowing behind me, I am more than I ever imagined. I am strong, I am bold, I am unapologetically her. I had survived the first few days of this forced transformation, but reality quickly reminded me that looking like a woman was only part of the challenge. The world expected me to be one, and every interaction was a test I hadn't prepared for. The office had changed overnight. My coworkers treated me differently, some with awkward curiosity, some with barely concealed amusement. Passing someone in the hallway, I could hear whispers. Did you see him today? He's really going for it, huh? My heart raced with a mixture of panic and shame. I caught my reflection in the glass doors, my chest slightly more pronounced, hips softer, the subtle sway of my dress making me painfully aware of every step. I hated it, but couldn't help noticing the way people's gazes lingered. During a team meeting, I had to introduce myself to a new client. The words felt alien in my mouth. My voice, higher, softer, more feminine, wobbled. I cleared my throat. Hi. I'm, Sana. I managed. The client smiled warmly, oblivious to my inner turmoil, while my colleagues exchanged subtle smirks. Afterward, I retreated to the restroom, my hands trembling as I gripped the sink. Why is this happening to me? I thought. How did I let it go this far? Yet, even as panic clawed at me, curiosity began to creep in. I studied my reflection closely, the curve of my lips, the shape of my eyes, the softness of my skin. Each detail seemed different, alluring even. The fear mingled with something I didn't want to admit, a strange, forbidden excitement. At home, I experimented. The heels that had felt like torture at the office suddenly became instruments of posture and poise. I tried different outfits, soft fabrics against my skin, skirts swaying with each step. I practiced gestures in the mirror, crossing my legs gracefully, tilting my head slightly while speaking, adjusting my hair with subtle elegance. Every discovery was small but intoxicating. The way lipstick changed my expression. How mascara made my eyes seem larger, more expressive. The confidence that subtly grew as I observed myself moving differently, more deliberately. It wasn't just clothing or makeup, it was power. I could command attention, control perception, and for the first time, explore a side of myself I never knew existed. And yet, the anxiety lingered. Work became a delicate balancing act. Some colleagues were supportive, offering subtle compliments. Your dress is lovely today. Others seemed amused, making quiet jokes I could hear if I focused. One lunch break, a female coworker, Rena, approached me cautiously. You look amazing, she said softly, avoiding eye contact. I know this isn't easy, but you're handling it well. Her words hit me like a balm. Someone saw me as more than a spectacle. They saw effort, vulnerability, and courage. I smiled, a real smile this time. Thanks, it means a lot, I whispered. But even as I navigated work, the outside world loomed. Social media, always hungry for content, seemed poised to expose my transformation. A friend warned me, be careful. People are cruel. I shivered, realizing she was right. Every step I took as Sana was visible, scrutinized, and judged. The pressure was enormous, but the thrill, the undeniable spark of self-discovery, was too strong to ignore. A turning point came unexpectedly. My boss, smug as ever, called me into his office. Time for your next challenge, he said, sliding a sleek black dress across the desk. An evening event. Full appearance, full confidence. Impress or reconsider your position here. My stomach sank. Social interactions had been hard enough during the day. Now a night event, with clients and senior management watching my every move. I tried the dress at home. It hugged me in ways that were both terrifying and exhilarating. Standing in front of the mirror, I traced the fabric, noting how it accentuated curves I hadn't noticed before. I swallowed hard, feeling my pulse spike. I practiced walking, sitting, laughing, even gestures of casual elegance. My reflection began to feel less like a stranger and more like an alter ego. Sana. A version of me that could exist fully in public. The night of the event arrived. My heels pinched, my legs trembled, and my heart threatened to explode. I caught glimpses of my reflection in every shiny surface, reminding me that I was on display. At first, I moved stiffly, self-conscious under the scrutiny of senior executives. Every comment, every glance, every faint smile or raised eyebrow felt magnified. I wanted to escape, to shed the persona and run home. But slowly, something shifted. A client complimented my earrings. I smiled, naturally, feeling warmth bloom in my chest. Another remarked on my posture, and I realized, without thinking, I had straightened my back, walked taller, and radiated confidence. The more I engaged, the more natural it felt. The fear didn't disappear entirely, but it became manageable, even thrilling. I was learning, in real time, to inhabit this persona fully. By the end of the night, I had conversations, laughed, and even flirted subtly. My old self would have frozen, but Sana moved with poise and grace. My boss watched from the sidelines, satisfied. You're impressive, he said as I returned home. You've adapted more quickly than I expected. I laughed softly, exhaustion and pride mingling. Thanks. I think I'm finally getting it, I admitted. That night, alone in my apartment, I reflected on the past week. The forced transformation, the embarrassment, the fear, it had been brutal. Yet, it had also revealed something vital. A strength I never knew I had. A confidence I had only glimpsed in moments of courage. I realized that being forced into this role didn't strip me of agency, it forced me to discover it. Femininity wasn't just clothing, makeup, or posture. It was presence, power, and self-expression. And for the first time, I felt like I was beginning to own it. I whispered to my reflection, softly, Sana, maybe this isn't just a challenge. Maybe this is who you were meant to be, even if it was forced. The journey wasn't over. The week still had more trials, more scrutiny, more tests of courage. But for the first time, I felt a strange mixture of fear and excitement, because I was starting to understand that I could navigate this world as her. And maybe, just maybe, I could even enjoy it. The following days were a roller coaster. I had grown used to walking asana, speaking asana, even thinking in subtle, feminine ways. But comfort was fleeting, because the world was still watching, waiting for me to slip. My boss, of course, was relentless. Tonight, he said, a wicked glint in his eyes, you'll attend the annual corporate gala. No mistakes. Every executive will be observing. This is your final assessment. I felt a shiver of dread. A week ago, I would have laughed nervously at such a challenge. Now, with heels pinching and a tight dress hugging my curves, I realized just how high the stakes were. One misstep and the embarrassment, humiliation, and judgment would be total. I spent the afternoon preparing meticulously. Hair styled into soft waves, subtle shimmer of eyeshadow, delicate jewelry that caught the light, and that perfect lipstick shade I had been practicing for days. Each adjustment was a small ritual, grounding me in the persona I had slowly begun to embrace. Arriving at the gala, the enormity of the situation hit me. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above, champagne flutes glinted in every hand, and every conversation seemed carefully measured and important. I felt like an imposter at first, but the moment I stepped through the doors, I forced myself to lift my chin and meet eyes with anyone who looked my way. And people looked. Colleagues, clients, even strangers, their gazes lingering a little longer than expected. It was terrifying and exhilarating. I moved through the crowd with careful steps, each one a negotiation between anxiety and poise. A senior executive approached, smiling warmly. You look stunning tonight, she said. My cheeks flushed. Thank you, I replied softly, realizing that my voice, once trembling, was now steady, confident. Each interaction reinforced something inside me. I could do this. Not just survive, but thrive. The turning point came when my boss cornered me near the balcony, his expression unreadable. How does it feel? He asked, almost teasingly. To be fully her. I swallowed, taking a deep breath. The truth bubbled up, unfiltered. It's terrifying, I admitted. But also powerful. I never thought I'd feel this way about myself, ever. He studied me silently for a moment, then nodded. Good. That's the point. Transformation isn't about forcing, you've discovered something about yourself. Own it. For the first time, his challenge felt less like coercion and more like revelation. My body, my movements, my very presence, it wasn't just a costume. It was a self I had been afraid to explore, now fully realized. Later that night, a mishap threatened to undo everything. One of my heels caught on the edge of a carpet, sending me stumbling into a cluster of executives. Gasps filled the room, and I froze, panic rising. Then I remembered every lesson of the past week. Posture, poise, grace under scrutiny. Slowly, deliberately, I regained balance, placing a hand lightly on the nearest shoulder, smiling, and excusing myself with calm composure. The relief that followed was intoxicating. The crowd's laughter wasn't mocking, it was impressed. I had owned the stumble. In that moment, I realized that true empowerment wasn't about perfection, it was about confidence, resilience, and owning every part of yourself. By the end of the gala, I was no longer just surviving as Sana. I was commanding attention, engaging in conversations, and even enjoying the compliments that came my way. My boss watched from the sidelines, a faint smile of approval tugging at his lips. You've exceeded expectations, he said later, when we were alone. You've embraced this fully, And it shows. You could have resisted, but instead, you discovered strength you never knew you had. I nodded, a mix of exhaustion and pride washing over me. I never imagined I'd feel like this about myself, I confessed. But I do, and I think I like it. He didn't respond, just left me with a knowing look. And I realized something profound. I wasn't his creation, his experiment, or his toy. I was me, fully, unapologetically, and undeniably. The days that followed were surreal. Friends who had been skeptical began to accept the transformation. Some colleagues treated me with newfound respect. Even strangers seemed to recognize the confidence radiating from me. Armin, my closest friend outside work, approached cautiously one evening. You're amazing, he said softly, eyes glinting. Not just how you look, but the way you carry yourself. You're alive in a way I've never seen. I smiled, feeling a rush of warmth. It's weird, I admitted. It started as something I had no choice in. But now, I'm starting to love who I am. He took my hand. Then own it. No apologies. No hiding. Just be you. And in that moment, I realized that being forced into this role had given me something I never would have discovered otherwise. My own strength, confidence, and a side of myself that felt liberated and authentic. Reflecting on the entire journey, I understood that transformation is never simple. It's not just about appearances, clothing, or voice. It's about presence, resilience, and self-discovery. Sometimes life, or even someone else's plan, forces us into situations that feel uncomfortable or humiliating. But within that discomfort lies potential, opportunity, and growth. I whispered to my reflection in the mirror that night, softly, Sana, you are strong. You are beautiful. You are unapologetically yourself. And for the first time, I truly believed it. The dress, the makeup, the heels, they were no longer symbols of coercion or embarrassment. They were symbols of empowerment, courage, and authenticity. I had been forced into becoming a woman by my boss, but in the process, I had found the woman I always was.